Welcome to another podcast, Q Up Podcast. This is Gary, the Boomer, and we've got Nick and Mike, the Millennials. We'll be talking today about all of the news that is made, the big news that came out this week. We had a wrap up of the DNC convention. We had the surprise, or maybe not so big surprise, of RFK dropping out of the race and endorsing Trump. So let's jump right into that. I'll start with you, Nick. When you think about the RFK thing, who benefits from RFK dropping out and endorsing Trump? Harris or Trump or neither?
I don't, that's a really hard one for me to call personally, just from where I view, RFK and then also the Trump camp and then, people with Harris. I don't think that I kind of envisioned RFK if he staying in and, possibly splitting a ticket more for Trump than Harris. I don't think that it really moves a lot for anybody. And even so much that, like, I don't think that I've run into a lot of RFK supporters that were Trump supporters. I haven't run into a lot of RFK supporters that were Kamala Harris supporters either. I think that they might just not turn out. It would be the majority. So I don't know. I mean, he's such a polarizing, like Trump, polarizing figure, you know, um, doesn't really, a lot of his platform that I've been aware of, I mean, he was an environmental lawyer for years and years and years. He's big on environmentalism. I don't think that that's something that a lot of the planks of the Republican Party really support. I don't think him endorsing Trump is really, doing much, gonna do much for Trump right now. I think Trump's got bigger problems too going on. So I don't know. It's I hate to give the milquetoast answer. I just really don't think, it's gonna move a lot of people towards the Trump camp.
Yeah,
That's my
Mike.
take. I don't know, Mike.
Mike.
What do you think?
I don't think it's gonna help Trump a whole lot. I think that people were RFK supporters because they hated the two candidates so much.
Yeah.
So those votes aren't really transferable to anyone else.
Yeah.
They're just gonna write in RFK, or they're not gonna go all together now.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of it's a confusing endorsement as well, because like RFK is of course a famous anti-vaxxer, and Donald Trump's administration developed the vaccine.
Yeah.
So that's unusual. I know that like Trump supporters try and distance, their movement and Donald Trump from Operation Warp Speed, but those two things are inseparable.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly one of his only actual achievements, so it's very interesting that he can't take credit for it now, which is funny.
Yeah, that is.
Then, I just don't think that it's, I don't think that it's a big leg up in any direction.
Well, and it was weird that he didn't formally drop. He's like, I'm suspending my campaign.
Yeah. Well, that's what you always say.
Yeah,
as though like you'd start it up again. Like
start it up again.
Says, we're suspending my campaign. There's also there was a very transactional quid pro quo about getting some sort of position in the Trump administration.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too. It's like, okay, so that's not really an endorsement then. That's almost kind of like a bribe.
A bot. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's not like an endorsement of his policies or anything. That's asking for a job.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that if they genuinely thought that RFK really believed in that candidate, then maybe this conversation would be a little different. Maybe they'll actually show up for him. But when it looks like their guy is just angling for a position in the administration, I don't think that that's going to energize him.
No, I don't think so either.
100%. That's what I read into it as well. He did RFK approached the Harris campaign and did not get any assurances of a job after the election. So he went to the next best, right? And self-serving.
But could even have a slight muting effect too, because like RFK's brand is so bizarre and off-putting to a lot of people then an endorsement by him might actually be a liability for the campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
No, definitely. I definitely.
Like, he's got like, I mean, I think that he floated a conspiracy theory once that the coronavirus is a combination Chinese Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like really, just like beyond like the regular conspiracy theory shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It takes it to
beyond
new
like
Yeah,
level.
just like, I mean, lab leak, which I don't even know if it's a conspiracy theory anymore, but like, like really, really out there. Yeah.
Well, and then like, I mean, he was attacking Bill Gates, and I think he was definitely part of they want to microchip
Yeah.
everybody, as if we don't carry around cell phones,
Even his like leftist positions, like
Yeah.
veered into the nutty. Like, okay, so
Yeah.
he's like a big climate change guy, but he is, he wants to arrest everyone who doesn't believe in climate change. And put him in
Yeah.
prison, which
Yeah.
is far beyond the pale for any climate change activist either. Like Al Gore doesn't feel that way.
I mean, it's far beyond the
By the way,
pale
shouldn't
for
Donald
any
Trump be in
reasonable.
prison then, as per his
Yeah.
own position,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it
Yeah,
seems
it's
it seems
interesting.
kind of like it just seems like you said, Mike. Yeah, I don't know if this endorsement. I think and I don't think it really does much for Trump right now in the news cycle. I mean, I know it's been the big talk, but like, I don't think anybody's going to be, it'll pop in the pan, and then that's it.
What day did it happen on? Was it Friday or Saturday?
Let me take a look here.
No, I think it was Friday.
It would have been better. It would have been optimal if it was sometime during the DNC to just like arrest
Yeah.
the news cycle from them for
Yeah.
half a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
No,
But
Friday,
they did it like
DNC
after the
was
DNC.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They already
DNC.
got that positive news cycle.
Oh yeah, they had
Yeah.
a positive news cycle. Harris got a bump last week. I think the DNC. Let's pivot to that a little bit. I think the DNC convention went off surprisingly well. I saw bits and pieces of it. It's a marathon, but the ratings were high. Everybody performed. Harris stuck the landing, which she had to do on the acceptance speech. So
because she just gave an
everybody else.
acceptance speech that was like that was within the realm of ordinary politics. Like something 30
Exactly,
something
which
minutes
is
long.
yeah.
Not
but
an
These
hour.
days
but that's
that's
been
considered stellar.
Yeah,
I
but
would
I mean,
actually
that's
call
the
it, like,
big.
probably a C+ effort. But like now it's like an A.
But that's been the big complaint that I've been, hearing is that, well, she's not out here speaking. She's not even out here doing anything, like, I think she came out and, was able to like lay a lot of that to rest. And I think the debate is going to be very interesting to see, her throw down.
Yeah.
And
I think
the
that
debate is
generally, though,
looming large.
yeah,
Right,
looming
right,
large.
was the high point of the entire convention was the Obamas speaking,
Oh,
particularly
yeah.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Who just delivered a stemwinder of a speech, and
Yeah.
conservatives across the United States, thank God, he has no political aspirations.
Yeah.
It'd be extremely
Yeah.
difficult to go up against. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think
Yeah.
that was kind of the high point of the entire thing. The low point would have been the first night, where Joe got pushed to way past prime time, but it turns out that's a good thing because he screwed up his speech anyway.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the part where he's tripping out, like he's trying to say that women have electoral power, but he keeps saying women have electrical power.
Oh,
several times.
Yeah.
It was one of his. I mean, like, it's a stumble for 5 or 6 seconds. It's like it ruins the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, I think the DNC, like we said, it was, as we talked about on the last podcast, that I think it was going to be, choreographed. It's going to come off well. I think, and I think it did. I think there's no real big shocking surprises.
No, it was pretty peaceful out there too.
Yeah.
There was, I heard that there was like 50 something arrests, which is that's par for the course, in a major political convention. It wasn't thousands of protests.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of arrests, and buildings on fire. Like none of that ended up happening.
It was not Chicago 68. That's for sure.
No.
They did a good job actually of managing that, I thought.
Yeah, well, and that was, that was very carefully staged too. So none of that happened by accident.
No.
Yeah.
There was definitely. Yeah, it definitely didn't interfere. I was pretty happy with what I saw. That, hey, we didn't have. I still want Jesse Ventura to just come up.
Yeah.
I still think.
There's still time.
I really
Yeah.
want that to happen. If we're gonna live in this timeline, like, let's just
That's
do
right. Yeah.
it.
Gotta have an arena, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe they
yeah,
could
just
arrange. Maybe they could arrange a match, Hulk Hogan and
yeah.
Jesse Ventura, just before the debate or after the debate.
Oh,
There you go.
oh
The
yeah,
ratings
yeah.
go
That
through
would
the
be
roof.
great.
Hulk Hogan
Yep.
came through Southern Idaho here. He came through the Boise area, and I think he was pushing a beer that he was like launching or something, right? But he was
Yeah.
doing photo ops with everybody, and there was a photo op with a guy who's got an SS tattoo on his arm, right?
Oh,
And I don't
really?
know
Yeah.
if like Hulk noticed that or not, but like, yeah, you can see it there. He's got his arm around him, and there it is.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're known by
Yeah.
the company you keep. Wow.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Lay
Well,
dog.
remember, there's good people on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just,
I
yeah,
think
right.
the one thing that the DNC missed is they should have had a Palestinian. There was a Palestinian congresswoman from like Georgia, and she's
Mhm.
prepared to give a short, pretty good speech, and they didn't let her take the stage. And
yeah,
I think that was a missed opportunity because
yeah,
that could have helped unify the base a little bit more. They wouldn't have lost anybody as a result of it. I mean, as it was, they had the parents of a hostage
yeah.
on. It
Yeah.
was very moving and so forth. So I think they did a pretty good job with that. But other than that, I think I give them a solid B plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the conference, yeah, or
Well,
for the
actually, I gotta
convention.
say though that like their organization skills suck. Like the scheduling and all that. Like all the big speakers got pushed past prime time because everybody went long.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that was
I
that was
mean,
a big screw up. Like, how did that happen? They like I
well, I
hear James
mean,
Taylor got bumped altogether. Like
yeah.
it's like they
In
messed up
working
big
in
time.
in working in production, though, like from my experience, like working in video and productions,
Well, and
that
somebody, some
is
scheduler said that like, well, we didn't, the applauses went too long or something. And it's like, well, you factor in time for applause too, like when you're
you
scheduling.
do, but like if I'm on set, for example, and like my AD1, my first assistant director, is like, we got to move on, I mean, it just always just
Yeah,
stuff happens that in it, like, you miss one shot or you miss one little bit here, you go over on this part, and it just ripples, and those
yeah,
ripples become ripples, and before you know it, it's just completely out of control. And especially with a live event, like, I can see it. I could see it. It happens.
like who ended up
The
getting the prime time slots? Like Chris Coons, like
yeah,
Andy Bashir,
yeah,
but
and that's when you would
the
you'd
main
want to
acts.
move you'd want to move the lineup, or if you could, if
Yeah,
if it was. But I mean, like, I working in not just live events, but like, in production, that sort of thing, just it's par for the course is what I saw. I was like, yeah, it went over. They got pushed out of the primetime slot. It sucked. They're
yeah.
probably not feeling good about it, but it
I
is
mean,
what
it's
it
not going to make
is.
like I don't think it's going to make an electoral difference. It's just like,
No,
hey,
no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's quite a production of that scale too. Like, God, how many people just like, I had a buddy down in LA who he just did this exhibition for National Geographic and Disney, putting on like what they did for the last year. And holy cow, the number of people and just the planning and all of it that went into it. And this was a small exhibition. I mean, not small, but like, this wasn't, the DNC, just the number of people involved is absolutely huge. It's
yeah,
absolutely huge. So I could definitely see a lot of, I thought it went off pretty well as a production goes,
Yeah, I did too.
like,
Yeah, I did too. What I saw of it,
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely felt out. Yeah,
yeah.
and I guess I did not see his speech, but I guess the second gentleman, Emhoff, gave a very
Hmm.
very
This was good
moving.
too.
I mean,
Yeah,
a
he did
very
well.
Yeah.
compelling speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he's been very vocal out there from what I've seen. It's
Yeah.
not just the like, oh well, I'm supporting, or yeah, he's been out on the trail.
Of course, you guys, if you
Like,
picked up the story of Coach Walsh's son, who is apparently has some
oh
learning issues, and and was very emotional. And that's my dad. And then the Republicans decided to
oh
make
yeah,
fun of that, and they
I
Ann
didn't. I
Coulter
don't
in
know what the
particular.
story is.
What the
yeah,
story is Walsh has a 16-year-old son who has
Okay.
some learning issues, disabilities, ACHD, and nonverbal
Okay.
learning disorder, and so on. And as his father was speaking or finished speaking, he stood up with tears in his eyes and he pointed to the stage. He said, "That's my dad." And the
Okay.
yeah,
Republicans grabbed that as a soundbite and then put it out there. And they said, "Oh, congratulations, Coach Walsh, you're raising a beta male. What a wimp."
yeah,
This is,
like,
Ann Coulter came out with her, and her two words were, "That's weird." And then there was this public backlash to say,
oh, of
I mean,
course,
it's the
learning
epitome of
disability or
coolness,
not.
I wasn't aware
Yeah,
Ann Coulter had a
learning.
career anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
learning
How about
Yeah,
her?
right.
disability
What
or
Yeah,
has she
not,
been?
like, if my dad was giving a speech running as vice president of the United States of America,
right.
I'd probably
Yeah,
do the exact same
Yeah.
thing. Like, I mean, the, I think the vectors of attack that the Republicans are. It's telling. It's like
yeah.
that's
Well,
what
they
you're complaining about.
continue to play the
Yeah.
mean card, the mean
Well,
Well,
card,
and
the
the
it's not
thing
race
gonna.
is,
card, the
what they got
crowd
is like
size.
they do have
It's
Waltz's DUI from the mid
Right,
'90s.
yeah,
I
right.
mean, he's going like 96 and a 45. It's not your average DUI. Like,
yeah,
it's an intense
You're
one,
right.
and he's like 33 too. Like, he's not
yeah,
22.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
yeah.
like,
I mean,
I'd be hitting Coach Waltz harder on that.
well, I mean, they
Although,
just.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not to your earlier point with the kid. It's like you're not gonna win over any single mom out there that's got a kid with
Bingo,
any sort of issue.
bingo.
And
You
guess what?
continue to play them. That's right.
Every kid has issues. Like,
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So
It
you're not
seems
gonna win with
not
that.
like
But like,
I
yeah, the
know
DUI thing, that would be a much more appropriate.
that's a
Like,
liability.
that's a
Yeah,
liability.
yeah. That's
I
like you could
mean,
have killed somebody going that speed. Like that's like
I mean,
insane.
like, did he ever? I mean, it's also an explainable or not explain. You can't explain it away, but you can be like, like, yeah, it was a big wake up call for me.
Well, yeah, I think he's
Changed
been
a lot of my.
sober since then. So like that's why
And I don't know if they really want to bring up any of the criminal stuff so much.
Yeah,
Right.
Like, do you want
Right.
to open
Yeah.
up the door and ring that bell? Because there's plenty to talk about, in
yeah,
criminal behavior that they're
Well,
just
that's
they're
the
just like, we'll
problem
just
they
let that.
have. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem they have if
Yeah.
they start talking about a military record. So let's
yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
military records and service to the
Yeah.
country.
Well, the
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
though, like a lot of rules don't apply to Trump. So like he can be like some sort of draft dodger or whatever, and like
Yeah.
he's already taken the political hit that he was going to take for that. That's baked into his personality.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
they can hit him they can give him broadsides about like the bone spurs and stuff all they want, but it's not going to affect him electorally anymore.
Well, I mean, but they can also bring up, like, the changes and cuts to the VA and all of these other programs that veterans rely on. I mean, like, that's
Yeah,
very adjacent to me, with my family. I mean, we can look at how vets were just treated and service members were treated during his presidency. And there's just so much there that you can't go into. And you've got this huge problem. It's like, well, we can't be the party of law and order when the guy we're running has 34 felonies. And the funny thing is, though, is every time I have a conversation or that comes up or something, is it just the goal line moves. Like, well, nobody's ever been charged with felonies for that. And I'm like, well, nobody was falsifying business records to subvert an election. You know, I'm
hmm
s-
Right.
like,
Yeah.
But you really have a problem talking about anything anymore. You like talk about family values. Well, how many times has he been divorced? I mean, the judge has been clear in the Jeanine Carroll case. Like, yeah, he raped her. Like, like you've got, you've got, I think he's, you know, and I don't know how much of it's spin or whatnot, but it seems like he's been kind of in a meltdown lately. You know, not really performing even for his own base. I know a lot of people he lost support within his base because he was like, I want to, really double down on this. I want to give
Well,
green cards to people to get college degrees here, which,
oh yeah, yeah.
honestly,
Well,
like, I
that's
don't
the
think it's a
left wing
horrible
position.
idea. Yeah, like, I don't, like, I think I'm fine with that.
He's just the problem
But
is he's out of his comfort zone running against Kamala Harris.
yeah,
Like,
Right.
I mean, like,
yeah,
they aren't like, Joe Biden robbed him of 2020, so he had a score to settle there.
yeah,
Hillary Clinton was the Democratic machine he had to vanquish to get the presidency in the first place. And Kamala
yeah.
Harris, I don't think he has strong feelings about one way or another. So, like,
No, yeah.
it's weird stuff that he brings up, like a
Yeah.
conspiracy theory that her crowds are just AI generated and like really unhinged stuff that isn't winning him
Or
any.
just like the microaggression or like dog whistles, like what do they call her?
Yeah,
Kamala or
this
whatever.
Right.
The weird
right.
inflection that they all seem to, this affectation that they seem to have like, it's just like, it's petty schoolyard stuff. And that's basically the response that he has.
And they never wrote a playbook about running
No,
against her. They had one
no,
against Joe,
no.
and it must be like it's a failure of imagination to
Yeah,
imagine that Joe Biden may not be the candidate the entire time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I mean
I
they
that's
can
mean,
only
exactly
blame
right.
themselves for
And
this.
yet it's shocking that they hadn't anticipated that they didn't have a playbook in place, that they
Yeah,
were overconfident, and they selected JD Vance, who I think is worse than Palin in terms of a VP
he
selection, probably the most
and
unpopular VP selection in 50 years.
hmm
Trump actually has a lot of material to work with Kamala too, but he can't stay on message. He can't stay focused. I
no.
think
Right.
she like throws him off his game a little bit.
Yeah,
You know,
no, she does. She does a lot, and
Well, I think I mentioned it in our last podcast. There was a talk show, one of the major talk shows on news, and they put a poll question out to the public: who's most likely to make, you know, a major error between now and the election? It was
oh,
80%, 80% Trump, 20%
yeah.
Harris.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, even if this show had a demographic that skews left, still that tells you a lot. Even the people, the Trump supporters say, yeah, that's our worst nightmare. Is we're
hmm
just worried whenever he's got 60 minutes to talk, what the hell's going to come out.
Well, and
So,
like, Kamala has so many handlers, and also she's listening to her handlers and she's
yeah.
listening
right.
to her strategists and everything, and Trump is not. So
Well,
Right.
he's
and I
just,
kind of get, yeah,
eventually
I,
something's going to go way wrong. Now, I don't
mhm.
know. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know if it'll actually even matter if it goes way wrong. Like, he's
No,
No,
got
that's
such
right.
a
Yeah.
hard, he's got a hard floor too. So, like,
Right.
it has
Yes.
to be
He
yeah,
has a hard ceiling and a
catastrophically
hard
bad.
floor.
the hard
Yeah.
floor,
Yeah,
and
to break
that's
through
yeah, that's
42%. I just don't
It's
see
yeah.
like
anything bad
it's like
enough
a two
happening.
percent window. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But
it. Like, he's just got that. Like, it's about 5%. So it's between
Yeah.
42 and 47 or 46, depending on who you ask.
yeah,
Right.
That's the hard
Yeah.
ceiling and the hard floor.
Right.
well,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of the impression that I've been getting with Kamala and like the energy that's been coming off of just the campaign and kind of how the conversation shifted is it's like finally the Democrats, like, the gloves are off, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and that's not something that I saw with the Biden campaign, a lot is that they were, on the back foot trying to,
Well,
well, he's old, he was tired, he's sick, we're making excuses. Now it's just like, yeah, you said that. Okay, well, here you go. Like, I'm
there's
coming,
there's
I'm
a
coming
little
back with a
more
1-2.
there's a little more savviness though in
Yeah.
the Harris campaign than there was in the Biden campaign, because the Biden
Yeah.
campaign was the democracy's on the ballot thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, its portrayal of what would happen if Donald Trump won was so abstract right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it was actually a very motivating factor for people to say the democracy's on the ballot and so on and so forth. And
Right. Right.
it seemed like fatalistic, and it wasn't working. And so
Yeah.
like the Harris campaign instead is just going to write off Trump and Vance as weird, and then forget
Yeah.
about them, and they're going to talk about the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
And come up with some policy proposals, some of which aren't great, but whatever, they're putting out some stuff anyway. And that's people responding to that much more.
Well, and I think that's
Yeah, the
what people
apocalyptic
wanted.
democracy's on the ballot message.
Yeah,
Just
I think
wasn't
that,
working.
and I think that's for years. I mean, even during the Trump presidency, all I wanted was a return to, like, let's make politics boring again.
Yeah, return to
Like,
normalcy.
yeah, like let me just oh, I'm flipping through the channels. There's C-SPAN. I might eyes glaze over after about 10 minutes and it's on to HBO,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
because I don't have to, I mean, that's what I think people want now. It's just like you can't turn on the news and hear anything about anything anywhere,
yeah.
or get on the internet, and it's just
Well,
I
what's
think for
interesting
a
too
lot
is
of
that
people,
Harris has inherited the Biden team too. That is
yeah,
like his campaign is now her campaign.
yeah,
So you got to wonder how much that messaging was, Biden's own idea, or something that like he favored heavily the direction he wanted to go in, because this isn't a new campaign team; it's the same one, but with a better message.
well, it's
and I mean,
about it's one of the Bushes. I can't remember who is the author of this, but it's the economy stupid. I mean,
mhm,
eventually, it goes back to that. If you
That was
listen to the majority of people, who was
that
that?
was James Carville
yeah,
Oh, it was
during
Carville.
Clinton's
Yeah,
first run. Yeah, he
yeah,
yeah,
hung up a banner in the Clinton campaign headquarters, saying it's the economy, stupid.
yeah,
yeah. That's
Yeah.
Carville. Yeah, Carville's the guy that you need to have in there running the show. He gets it.
Well,
He
yeah,
understands.
Carville and David Axelrod have been screaming bloody murder for the last like 18 months.
yeah,
Like, you can't keep going
yeah,
this direction. Like, it's not going to work. You
yeah,
know,
Right.
yeah. They have,
you've got to
Yeah.
something's got to change. I mean, they weren't as forward as saying you need to swap out your candidate, but
yeah.
like they came close to saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially towards the end there, right when before Biden left, it was, that message was getting very much louder.
Right.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
A lot of I saw Carville himself, and just be like, I don't think this is. I'm just
yeah.
straight up, we're not going to do this.
Well, and David
Like,
Axelrod too.
yeah,
And you know, we'll never really know exactly if Obama could build a ticket from scratch, because like Axelrod's definitely in like the Obama camp, or
yeah,
like the Obama
Yes.
center of power in the
yeah,
Democratic Party. And you could argue there's multiple centers of power in the Democratic Party,
yeah,
but Axelrod's in that one. And
Yeah.
if
I
Obama
totally
could
agree.
build a ticket from scratch, I don't think it would actually include Kamala Harris. I don't think that she was the most competitive candidate that came to mind for him.
yeah,
Well, I tell
Their
you what, though,
endorsement was
she
late.
has. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's been pleasantly surprising the last couple of
yeah,
weeks. I think that the time that she spent as the vice president, traveling the world, giving speeches, that honed her skills. She
hmm
came across much more human, much more confident.
hmm
She even lowered the register of her voice, so she's speaking a little bit in a deeper voice.
not
So, in
like a
other words,
kindergarten teacher
she's
anymore.
well, yeah, exactly right. That's the point. I
Yeah,
mean, she's to your point, Mike. She's listening to her handlers, and
hmm
yeah,
she's smart enough to be able to respond. So I think
yeah.
she's turned into a formidable candidate.
That was
Oh
like the
yeah,
grading effect that she had on a lot of Americans. Was the register of her voice was so high that it sounded
Right.
condescending,
Yeah,
or it
that's the
sounded like
point.
she's talking
And
to like
she
second graders.
really, yeah,
And
she
someone told
really
her to
worked
stop
on that.
doing that.
it's
They
just
have
the
to actually been
weirdest.
doing that.
It's just the weirdest stuff that, like, people pick up on to vote for,
Oh yeah,
like, what, it really is. And I think it warrant, I mean, I don't think it's a conversation that we could even cover over 10 podcasts, but like, it's just the weirdest stuff to me sometimes that I'm like, it seems like nobody cares or wants to talk about, like, Trump had a whole plan to pull out of NATO.
Yeah,
Who, like, but people want to talk about Kamala, the timbre of Kamala Harris's voice is why I don't like her. It's like,
Well, yeah,
you
so
know,
it's interesting. I got into a political discussion recently with somebody who's a big Trump supporter, and his points were, in terms of the anti-Harris Waltz campaign or team, is Waltz was the guy that put tampons in men's and boys' bathrooms, and that you've got transgender women competing in sports, in sports with an unfair advantage. And I'm thinking,
It's like culture war
really?
distraction
These,
stuff. Like,
yeah,
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 these are
yeah.
pivotal issues. Neither one of those
yeah.
are going
Well,
to
and
impact me, right? Yeah,
no,
Well,
well, and I
he's
and I
just
think,
he's a college swimming enthusiast. That's what it is.
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
he's been following
Yeah,
college level female swimming his whole life.
yeah,
right. Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
just can't
this is a
stand
pivotal
to
issue.
see the
yeah,
sport
This is
like
unfair. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
He's got
You
30
know,
favorite players that he can name off the back of his
top
head.
of his
yeah,
head,
right.
he knows
Yeah,
every
yeah. Name
record.
one
Like, yeah,
college swimmer, and they wouldn't be able to come
yeah,
up with a single. Yeah, as opposed to inflation, which is now coming down to a record low, to
hmm
unemployment, which is at a record low, to a stock market, which is at a record high. These are the issues, and I think that's the message that needs to be communicated.
So just like we were just talking about how voters don't think rationally sometimes, right? I was thinking about this the other day, and like the only thing that can explain Kamala Harris's like 19-point jump in approval ratings, because she was very, very unpopular before all this happened, right?
yeah,
And now she's like decently popular.
yeah,
And I
Right,
think that those numbers were soft disapproval ratings. So like
right,
people didn't
right,
like her, but they couldn't say why. Or I think the real reason is people didn't like her because they heard she's unpopular. There's sort of
yeah,
a circular logic thing going on there that doesn't make
right.
sense. That's like a soft disapproval that just falls apart as soon as you get a couple of good news cycles.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. The main complaint that I've heard about her was that she was a prosecutor who locked up people who smoked weed, and like,
Yeah.
and a lot. And they were like, well, she hid evidence or whatever. I mean, the stuff that's like, okay, well, I mean, like, I'm sure you've not read any of the cases
Yeah.
for
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, if you're a prosecutor, like, that's your job,
Yeah.
like,
That's right.
you're not here to. And I've heard a lot of people like, well, she kept people in jail, and I'm like, that's a prosecutor doesn't do that. Like,
Right.
there's
As the judge
so
does that.
much.
Right.
The judge does that, like, it's
The
her
only like
job.
serious like judgment and error, or error in judgment that I could see her having was like, in the 2019 or the 2020 primary, she staked out pretty far left positions, right? Because she wanted to
Mhm.
win the Democratic primary, and she was kind of like
Yeah,
doing
she's
a
running
primary
left.
wrong.
Yeah.
Well, because like you're supposed to like you tack to the center, right, during the general, but
Yeah.
like you're not
Right.
supposed to like flip flop on all the positions you just had. You
Right.
Yeah.
change what you're talking about. That way you can like continue having those positions, but you're talking about a different thing.
hmm
You know, so she was doing like primaries all wrong, and like I mean, she didn't even make it to the
Yeah.
actual electoral process.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, she didn't get a single vote, but she's
No.
been
yeah,
a
zero
pleasant
delegates.
surprise. So this week is going to be a pivotal week, I think, because you've
hmm
got both conventions behind us. You've got Trump's sentencing coming up, by the way, and now you've
Yep.
Yeah,
got the RFK thing. And I agree with you. I think it's going to turn out to be a big fat nothing burger because
hmm
he was pulling 4 points, and these were the anti-Trumpers and the anti-Biden people. That was
Yeah.
basically his base. And to your point, let's say 2% of those of the half of the 4%, 2% would be inclined to vote for Trump. Number one, I don't think they're going to bother showing up. I think they're checked out. I think
hmm
Harris will probably pull off because remember, these were anti-Biden people. These weren't
hmm
anti-Harris people. So some of the normals will start, if there is such a thing, gravitating her way. And I think it'll, and particularly, by the way, as it plays out in really what we're talking about here is we're talking 7 states. This
hmm
election comes down to 7 states. The other 43 states were already done. Why even bother? But the 7 states, the swing states, they call them, that's where these factors will come into play. And as I looked at all of those, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. To your point, Mike, I agree. I think that um, the Harris people did the calculus on this, and they realized there was more downside than upside. And so, and then Trump being, fairly desperate, he sees what's going on with the polls. He's got to start, throwing some Hail Marys. And that's what he did. So now we're going to have this week. So we'll kind of, the dust will settle. We'll see where this lands, that particular issue. And I think we're going to find out that it was a big fat, thud. But it's the debate. I mean, it's going to come down to, it's going to be, a pivotal debate for both of them. So,
yeah.
And that's the week after next, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I think the debate's going to be if that's where we're going to see the real delta, the real separation between, and it's going to be right there in front of you. So, I mean, I think even, Trump has his base, he has his solid floor, but that doesn't mean that they're going to come out and vote if they, some of these people are so, on the immigration thing, it's like, you lost my vote forever. Well, I mean, if they do vote, they're going to go vote for Kermit the Frog or, RFK or,
in this
like
debate,
whoever.
I think Harris is the one who has pretty much anything to lose or gain.
Yeah.
The debate performance that Donald Trump turns in will be nearly identical to every other one he's done. Right. So it won't be very good, but a lot of his base will think it's very good. And everyone else will think it wasn't very good. Right?
Well, and I think
that'll be the whole thing, So like,
and we talked about it before. We talked about it before too, though, is that it's a debate just between those two, and he does debate better when there's multiple people on stage.
Yeah, well, it's because he can't he can swoop in and snipe. And,
he can hide and So I'm really interested to see like how much of a spread that and kind of what the strategy that Harris is going to bring. Is she going to, are you going to come out and just beat him up?
I think that they're going to try and go substance heavy. I don't think that she's going to be like an attack dog. They're going to have her memorize talking points, 30 likely questions, something like that. Maybe include like a couple of zingers in there that are built in.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Type stuff.
I mean, I guess, I think Tim Walz is the one. That's why you picked him. He's the one that's going to go swinging.
She's not going to go on the offensive the entire time. I think.
But I think you do have to turn into I think she has to turn into a bit of a prosecutor during the debate.
Well, she'll probably bring up the line, that everyone wanted to use so bad that I don't think is that great of a line. But it's like, well, he's a convict and I'm a prosecutor, and I don't think it's going to be the mic drop that everyone thinks it's going to be, because both of them.
Well, but I think to be
so
in front of national
realization for everybody,
But I think it'd be in front of national audience and bring up the, the point of, so Mr. Trump, I understand your belief is, or you are going to pardon the January 6th, because you're on record as saying you're going to pardon all the January 6th criminals, even those who assaulted police officers. And just publicly state that. I think a lot of people are unaware of that's his position. That is his position. So
you force him to defend it. It's like, ring the bell.
He can,
you
can totally ask him, like, Donald Trump, do you intend to pardon yourself? And it used to be that Donald Trump could just shoot back at Joe Biden. Well, do you intend to pardon Hunter? But now, he can't say it anymore.
Well, I think Joe Biden should
pardon anybody.
I think he should. What are you going to lose?
Joe will probably do that on the way out the door, and I wouldn't fault him for doing it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can't
privilege.
You wouldn't be able to bring it up with her though. So I think that would be a very good line for her that I hope she uses. Because now there's no rebuttal.
No.
There's. Well, we've got a big week coming up, so let's stay tuned in the news. Next week we'll be talking just pre-debate, so we'll have some thoughts on that to share with the audience. But as always, guys, we live in interesting times. So have a good week. And we'll see you all next. We'll see you next Sunday.
All right.
See you next Sunday.